I'm Tim, welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Well, Monday is Mailbag. Welcome, this is your home on YouTube, these are your questions, and this is your show. So we've got some talking points, but we're more than happy to drop them for the sake of the live interaction. I'm here with my friend Niko Maldonado.
Good to be here.
Cool. And both of us are at your disposal to answer questions about the wide world of watches, starting with a this or that. Niko, this or that, please explain to me your thinking. Breguet Classique 1747 regulator, very traditional ultra-thin watch, or something traditional but in an oversized package. JLC Grand Reverso calendar.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because, as everybody knows, I preach dress watches, which they both are.
Yeah.
The Jaeger for me is like, almost a grail piece, even if it's, like we've talked about before, it doesn't have to be expensive to be a grail. But I love ultra thin.
Yes.
So, these are two that really compete well with each other. So for me, I would probably go Jaeger just because of the fact that it is a display case back, which I really like on Jaeger. I'm a fan of the duo face, the day and nights, the sun, moon, so on and so forth for their other editions that have two dials, but I love the display case backs. I think they're artfully done, and I think it's something that everybody's got to have. So that would probably be my vote. But of course, the Breguet in the ultra thin is really comfortable, really versatile as far as being a crossover watch, which we've talked a lot about.
Sure.
But for me, it's like 51.49. I'd love to hear what you have to think.
Okay, yeah, this is interesting for me because this question was specifically tailored to you because you're a dress watch purist.
Right.
And I know all of your aspirational watches are either ultra thin or some kind of reverso.
Basically.
So it's a good competition, and the watches are so dissimilar. I had a lot of complaints to the effect of, Tim, why is your this or that always between two Rolexes or something on a Rolex? So we decided to go off the beaten path. For me, I'm going to say that because I'm a JLC collector, I'm partial to the Reverso, but if I do not have that prior attachment, I would say the Breguet offers a lot that this particular Reverso doesn't. This Reverso is big. You see Grand Reverso, you're looking at a big width lug to lug.
Sure.
This particular Breguet, and I've actually got it on the table here tonight, so it's the Regulator 1747, a limited edition from the late 90s, 1997. It's only 7.5 millimeters thick. It's automatic. It's white gold. It has a hand guilloche dial, and it actually has a kind of cool case back where they continued the guilloche treatment, but on the exterior of the case, something you don't see too often. Plus, it has the inscribed names of like a million infamous customers, including Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. So that watch has a ton of character to me. If I weren't already wedded to JLC and the Reverso, and I were strictly looking at this from your standpoint of a collector looking to get into a dress watch, I might go for that Breguet.
Yeah, I totally can see where you're coming from. There's a lot to say for both pieces. I see what you're saying on, what the JLC doesn't offer versus the Breguet, but both are really awesome selections.
Really cool watches. Reverso calendar watch, emblematic JLC, ultra thin, beautifully guilloche cut dial regulator with the Breguet. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. I think maybe due to familiarity, the Breguet intrigues me a bit more, but then again, look where I put my money, I own two Reversos. So guys, tonight I wanted to just say we're going to have a new set. You guys complained about the wood, and Niko, we got rid of the wood. Well, not really. It's behind all the stuff you see here. Then a lot of you said you guys could dress a little bit better. The background could be a little bit less chaotic. This is my shelf full of keepsakes. So we have a new set on the way, and we do have new looks on the way. We're going to dress a little bit better, dress up to the occasion of a luxury program. I will say, however, that there are certain lines I will never cross as we transition aesthetically. This will never be me. And Faylene has a photo to illustrate. I've got a bear trap out back with a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon in the middle, specifically for hipsters like that. On the other hand, this is me, and we have a graphic to illustrate, so don't worry, things aren't going to get too prim and proper. Niko, quick question.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a new channel, and
Yes.
It's all wrist reviews.
Yes, I'm very excited for that.
Okay. The channel is here, guys. Niko's subscribed. I would love you to subscribe too. It's called Watch You Want, Watch Reviews. It's that simple. All the old talking hand reviews I used to do are there. And we're activating 3 new ones daily with 1 notification. So you get the action, but you don't get the carpet-bombed email. And that's all I'm going to say about that from this point forward. Okay. Into the questions, Niko. Ben Q from the UK asks, would you mind if you shared your thoughts on the new Christopher Ward jumping hour? and also Christopher Ward in general. Okay, Ben, thanks for reaching out from the UK. I hope you're able to watch us live. If not, I hope you're watching the recorded broadcast, because here comes the answer. Okay, so the Christopher Ward Malvern C1 Jump Hour, it just came out in the last week. It's a 40.5 millimeter stainless steel jump hour. It's part of Christopher Ward's ongoing fascination with the jump hour complication. It's been a few years since they've launched one, but it's been part of the line. Jump hour has been part of the line pretty much continuously for the last 5 years. Now, this one features a Sellita SW200 base beneath a jump hour module, and a Sellita SW200 is like a Sellita ETA 2824 clone. The watch itself costs $1,595 US, and it's a factory direct type of deal. It comes on a cordovan shell like horse strap, or you can get it on a bracelet. I haven't seen the pricing for the bracelet. Now, Christopher Ward is, first of all, the watch. I like it, but I'll get to why I wouldn't necessarily jump for it immediately. 3 dials, by the way, guys: blue, silver, and black. So Christopher Ward was founded in the early 2000s by 3 partners. One of them, Chris Ward, was a specialist in Eastern manufacturing, and they got together. They're from England, so their company's based out of England, but the production, at least final assembly, is done in Switzerland. Now, the thing is, they were one of the original micro brands. Niko, you've seen like these brands that, just they seem to pop up like weeds on the internet. Watches for anywhere between $500 and like $1,500. Not really watches we buy here.
No, for sure. And, it's interesting that we talk about micro brands, because I know Javier's been commenting, saying wristwatch check, because I'm finally wearing one. I'm a fan of micro brands, and I like the pop-up watches. And so I have a pretty, decent-sized collection, but not all of them are Jaegers and Omegas and Rolexes. Okay. I'm a fan of the watch that delivers quality and delivers a decent movement, whether it be quartz or automatic, for an economical price. So, I look at these watches, and I'm not sure that they demand the $1,500 or so price range, but the thing is that once they go past that, obviously we're the pre-owned specialists, they're significantly discounted. So it's one of those things where, for what they deliver for the pre-owned price, they make sense, and they're good looking. And
maybe they're the kind of watch that like people trade between themselves pre-owned.
100%. They're great forum watches. They're great stuff for people to go back and forth and maybe trade 2 or 3 up to maybe a lower level Tudor or something like that.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it. I would say Christopher Ward, because they progressed so far beyond the volume of what could be considered a micro brand with their direct sales model.
Sure.
You do pay a Christopher Ward premium compared to watches that are more or less identical mechanically and aesthetically, with cases and crystals and buckles made in the same Far Eastern factories. And that's the other thing about Christopher Ward. They do take advantage of Far Eastern manufacturing for components. The watches are still final assembled in Switzerland. I think they're made in like BOBN, but the bottom line is you're getting a lot of Far Eastern componentry.
Right.
Impressive that they do have their own SH21 caliber that they developed in-house. They bought a company called Synergy Horlogère back, I want to say it was like 2014 they bought it, and so they got the double barrel automatic winding 5-day power reserve SH21. There are about 9 companies, I think, that contribute to making that movement. Right. So it's better described maybe as exclusive to them rather than a manufacturer caliber, which it's really not. But I guess the main problem with Christopher Ward is just, unless you're going with that particular caliber and its derivations, it's kind of like a micro brand. Like you said, you like micro brands.
Yeah.
I think they make the most sense in like the $500 to $800 price range.
Absolutely.
I think Christopher Ward's moved beyond that. So maybe if you're looking at a Christopher Ward, shop around, because unless you're going with that one cool in-house caliber, you're comparing micro-brand, mostly Eastern components to like with Christopher Ward. And you could probably buy something that's qualitatively similar for a lot less. So I'd say buy if you're in love with the specific designs, otherwise shop around. Interesting business model, though, direct sales.
It is, and I think that kind of what you're saying is right on par, because I think they might be in just a little bit of a gray area between being, getting out of the micro-brand and then getting into being something a little bit more.
By volume,
Right, by volume, but that are people are willing to pay for. So I think that what they're doing is on the right track, but I don't think that they're quite where they're trying to demand yet. So it'll get there, though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, An exclusive caliber was a good step forward. I think a lot of people would feel a lot better if they said, look, we're going to arrest the price increases for a while, and we're going to focus on our bread and butter, which is the sub $1,000 dress and sports watch. Beyond that, I start to worry. I think maybe there are better options when you get beyond that point, including vintage and pre-owned Oris, Fortis, you name it. Once you're over $1,000, a lot of cool pre-owned watches that are true luxury start to become available. Okay, so Ben S. We have another question from a viewer in the UK.
Sure.
Ben, I hope you're still up watching. But Ben says, I currently have a Mont Blanc Heritage Chronometry twin counter on a leather strap, bought new. I love the aesthetic, and I've got to say it keeps excellent time. He's a family man. He is a doctor, so he says his budget is reasonable, all things considered. He's looking to purchase another watch in the not-too-distant future and would love a Moonphase. And he says it's his favorite complication. He's into movements, so he doesn't want something like generic, like an ETA geared to a DD module. He wants something with a little bit of a pedigree. And ideally, he would love a display case back. He would also like to have one of his watches on a bracelet, but he could, in theory, get the bracelet for the Mont Blanc, leaving his Moonphase to be a strap watch, so you can put your money into the movement and the watch itself rather than, having $2,000 go toward a bracelet or whatnot. So he says he would like to get a second-hand watch with his upper limit being approximately $10,000 US, and his preference is some sort of Audemars Piguet or JLC. Niko, I've got some suggestions, and then I'd love for you to throw in.
I look forward to it.
Okay, so he mentions the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Moon.
Which we love.
We love. We both love that
Which
watch.
we love, right.
For me, the steel with the black dial, that's a heartthrob watch. I get warm fuzzies, and if I didn't already own a complete calendar black dial Moonphase JLC, I'd probably be targeting that. That's an $8,700 watch, so it leaves him with plenty of headroom.
Yeah.
And you can use that remaining headroom to get the bracelet for his Mont Blanc.
Right.
And he's also looking at the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Calendar in steel, which is an update of the watch I have here. The Master Calendar in steel is a 2013 to present complete calendar. Let me fight my way to a little bit better resolution on my macro camera. But it's an update of this 37mm watch that I own called the Master Moon. I love that watch at US $9,550. It does not leave him a whole lot of headroom for tax and for the bracelet on his Mont Blanc, but it's an option.
Sure. Yeah. It totally is. I mean, for me, you've got excellent taste, first of all. The Master Ultra Thin Moon, I think really steals the show in the two pieces that you've asked about, and also leaves the room, like you said, for his other aspirations. So if you really did want to get to that full ceiling and utilize every dollar right,
go for the bracelet and the watch, and the second
Make
watch.
yourself happy on the first watch and have the second watch be everything you want it to be. That's where I'd go.
And, if you do like the Moonphase, the Master Ultra Thin Moon does make the Moonphase paramount. You get a nice little discrete radial date around it, but it's not going to be lost in a constellation of other complications. Whereas if you go with the Master Calendar, now you've got a complete calendar, day, date, and month, and some people think it's just a little too busy, but it is a watch with real pedigree and a great tradition. Like, next to the Reverso, I'd say JLC's big traditions horologically are calendar watches and alarm watches.
Yeah.
So it's pretty core for JLC.
Totally agreed. If you're not going into Reverso, you're going into the next best thing.
Yeah. So those are two cool options that Ben mentions. We seem to be leaning towards the Ultra Thin Moon just because it leaves him headroom to buy a bracelet for his Mont Blanc. But let me add that you have some additional JLC choices below $10,000, especially if you're willing to go pre-owned. But I want to address the Audemars Piguet end because he also mentioned
Sure.
that. So Audemars Piguet, consider the reference 25548BA. Now this is a yellow gold watch, 36 millimeters, perpetual calendar. So you're getting real sophistication here.
Yeah.
This is a high complication from Audemars Piguet. It's an historically significant watch that they used to throw into their magazine ads and newspaper inserts during the 1980s and the late 70s. And it was really Audemars Piguet doubling down on mechanical watches at a time when, quartz was really expected to kill off traditional Swiss mechanical horology. So if you want a reference as important to Audemars Piguet as those calendar watches are to JLC, 25548BA, great watch. A no wrong answer watch, and you can get them solidly under 10,000. I would say 8 to 9.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that have had them in the past and that give them to us on trade for whatever it is, a lot of the ones I've seen have been really well taken care of. It seems like owners knew when they got these watches that they were special and they were something that, was going to carry on a legacy, and they really do. I love small watches. I'm not wearing one right now, but I like a dress elegant watch, and that has the power of the bracelet and, the wherewithal to really be a great all-around piece.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen them on bracelets, uncommon. You won't be able to get them on a bracelet for under 10,000 just because the amount of precious metal. These are
Right.
this is an all precious metal watch. I've seen them in white gold, I've seen them in platinum, I've seen them in yellow gold. You'll never see them in steel. But what a watch! And with the JLC base caliber, known as the Audemars Piguet caliber 2120, it's that same base caliber that was in the original Royal Oak, that was in the original reference 3700 Nautilus, that was in the original Vacheron 222. Really historic base movement with a historic Audemars Piguet complication on top. Like, it doesn't have a display case back, but rest assured, what's in there is immaculate. So that's my first suggestion. If he wants to go AP and he wants a Moonphase, why not get a perpetual with it? But he could also go with an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak reference 25594 in steel. Now, this is a watch, it's a little bit like the Owl, but it has a Moonphase.
Correct.
So what do you think about this watch at 36 millimeters, like the Owl, but with a Moonphase?
I really like it. I mean, I think that it maybe crowds the dial just a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
because of the fact that it is already a 36 mil, and now with the current mentality of people who think AP on a bracelet, they think bigger, they think it's going to
Okay.
feel a little bit more substantial. I think for what it was in its time, it's flawless. I think that it's really, really nice feel, and it's a beautiful Moonphase on top of it. It's something that I would wear for sure, but I do think it's something
likewise,
that
I
I would
would.
have to see in person next to the one without the Moonphase in the same size to
Okay.
kind of make a good decision.
Yeah, that's true. The Owl is the Date 8. This is the
Right.
Owl with a Moonphase. You can get these under $10,000 on a full steel bracelet, and AP metal finish, even on stainless steel, maybe especially on stainless steel, is worth the price of admission by itself. Getting a JLC-based complication in an Audemars Piguet case and dial, Royal Oak, no less, to me that's very compelling for under $10,000. And, of course, I know Ben asked about serviceability down the road. Anything you get that's Audemars Piguet or Jaeger-LeCoultre will be serviceable forever. They're all based on rock-solid platforms that all high-end watchmakers are pretty much familiar with, and the factories behind them will never disappear. So you can buy those pre-owned in good conscience and never worry about parts or service. Now, I will say this, there are a couple of other JLC options that Ben has with respect to Moonphase, and one of them is the perpetual calendar version of my watch, which you can look up as the reference 148 or 140.8.80.s. That's the case code, not the catalog number, that's the case code. That's a 37 millimeter steel black dial perpetual calendar, and this one does have a display back. You won't get a display case back on those APs. You will, though, on this perpetual calendar JLC. Niko, what do you think of that particular choice? Basically my watch, but a perpetual calendar variant.
I like it a lot. I really like the perpetual calendar look on that watch. Another graphic we're putting up has the brown strap. I would probably change it out to put it on a black like yours because I think the overall look of that is a lot better. It kind of grabs the dress watch aspect of that watch a lot better. The display case back is something that to me is invaluable because of the fact that you're getting it on a Jaeger, which to me is one of my favorite movements to see through the back of a watch. So, if it's somewhere in the same price versus the APs that are going to be aged a little bit more and I got to choose one or the other, I'm probably going Jaeger, but again, like Tim has said repeatedly, and like I have, a little bit partial to the brand, but I think one-on-one, it really does win.
This might be my favorite watch of the group. I got to be honest. I'm a fanboy of JLC. Maybe at this point I'm the fanboy. I don't know. I think the guy who moderates the pro site JLC forum still has the record. He's got like 120,000 posts. But I would hope that I'm next in line. So then there's the other option, which of course is to save money. And now that JLC, you could probably get it for $8,000-$9,000 in steel. That's the perpetual. I bought mine for $5,500. This is the Master Moon in 37. Complete calendar watch with a Moonphase, not an annual, not a perpetual, just a very handsome, very traditional JLC Moonphase complete calendar watch. And yes, I know Ben likes the case back display, and this watch has it. It's an 889 base. So a modular complete calendar based on a JLC 889. I think it's called the 891 in this case. That's a great option, and again, it leaves more money, several $1,000s, to accessorize the rest of your collection. And like you said, Niko, get the black strap if you buy one that's not on that perfect black strap with a black dial.
Yeah, totally agreed. You got to make sure it's a good all-around.
So we have a question from the field right now. Dr. Jamal from South Africa says, Tim, new or little used high accuracy quartz sports watch at say 1500 US. Okay, you have a couple of options. I would say consider a watch that you don't see too often. It's the Citizen Chronomaster. Now, this is a watch that came out it's been around since at least 2008. Citizen had two lines that more or less compete with Gran Seiko at the lower end of the Gran Seiko catalog, Chronomaster and Campagnola. Now, Campagnola is very eclectic. In particular, the Chronomaster I have in mind is a three-hand watch that is absolutely gorgeous and with a silver sunburst dial, a perpetual calendar by means of a single window date that simply knows what month it is and what phase of the leap year cycle it's in. Citizen Chronomaster. Look into this because this is well worth your while as a watch you can buy for much less than $1,500. Otherwise, for $1,500, if you want a pure sports watch, then you want to go with something like a Breitling Aerospace.
Ah, you took mine.
I'm sorry.
I knew you were going to do it too. It was such a good one.
No. But sing the praises of the Aerospace. Let our viewers know what's going on.
And I think that this watch is so underrated because for me, the Aerospace is one of those watches that I think kind of missed with people because they didn't really take the time to learn about it and look at it. So it's something that on a bracelet, with full boxes and papers in the older editions we've been well under $2,000 for. It's something that's really easy to change out and put onto a NATO or put onto a rubber strap, and keep the same buckle. So that's one that I would really advise to get into not only a great quartz watch, but into a nape. And
the other thing about it is it's more versatile than you think at first glance because you think, okay, this is a pilot's watch.
Right.
But then you realize, but it also has a 100-meter water resistance rating. It has a unidirectional dive-style bezel. It's got a backlight. It's got a minute repeater, electronic minute repeater. But you know what? That's useful at times when you just can't glance at your wrist. Just push the crown and you hear it.
Yeah.
Like that you can actually hear over the din of an engine in an airplane or a car. Dual time, chronograph, perpetual calendar. There's really nothing not to like about them, plus an analog digital display.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of the watch. I mean, I had one for a little bit of time, and I really enjoyed the piece. So, for that kind of money, get into the name, get into the feature, I would totally advise if you want to be at the higher end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Citizen CTQ 57 is the Chronomaster I have in mind. You can get it with a black or a silver dial. It's not purely a sports watch, but it is sports watch rugged, and it's highly accurate. It would by far surpass the Swiss COSC's standards for a quartz chronometer. Now, the Breitling Aerospace is a super quartz caliber, so it's thermocompensated, very accurate. You can wear it in the heat, you can wear it in the cold. This is usually a major Achilles heel of quartz calibers in terms of accuracy. This is one that is largely resistant to that. So, hey, it's a quartz chronometer, and those are pretty rare.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been seeing a few comments come through that they're looking to do a wristwatch check.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So we'll start with you, because that's by far the more impressive piece.
Niko, you can select anything from the table. If you'd prefer to just default to
I will show my micro brand. I'm not ashamed.
Okay. Well, this is my macro brand right here, and it's
there you go.
A macro brand in macro size. And I'm trying to get the smudges off the dial, but this is my first Jaeger LeCoultre. This is the Master Compressor Extreme World Alarm Tides of Time limited edition. You can see on the back it's got that cool Tides of Time engraved logo, and the watch has a couple of interesting flourishes that differ from the mainstream version of this watch. The mainstream version of this watch is all red accented and has a red anodized crown. I always thought the black anodized World Time chapter ring crown here was a little bit more upscale. It has the World Time complication, but it also has a really cool alarm with a double digital scale where you have the hours and the minutes scrolling by on separate wheels. It's also got the quick strap removal system, so I can dismember it in the blink of an eye just like that. And the neat thing is it takes generic straps. So all you have to do is get the strap width correct. Mm-hmm. You're not married to a proprietary strap system like with IWC and with Cartier and with Hublot. So this is a great watch. This was my first JLC. I got it while I was in the Navy. It's an alarm. It's a world time. And they say you can go mountain biking and dirt biking with it. And I tried it, and it was fine. So they threw down the gauntlet. I answered, and what can I say, JLC, good as your word.
Yeah, and it's a really nice watch. It's one of my favorites in your collection. So, I kind of chose to wear this watch that I have on my wrist today because of the fact that we started talking about Christopher Ward and micro brands, which, like I said, I'm a fan of. So, I chose a brand called Zeppelin, which is actually something that is pretty unknown to most people. I think the first person that I ever had come up to me and say, hey, look, that's a Zeppelin, was Federico, who actually knows one of the distributors of the watch. So I'll put it up on the macro, see if I can get in the right place. But
you're actually doing a pretty good job of that.
It really is a great looking piece. I really enjoy the chrono on it. It is quartz. Zeppelin is a great brand for people who are looking to get into a watch that at least has kind of a substantial, very nice leather strap. Some kind of a substantial feel on it, and still is very enjoyable and looks a lot better than it is as far as for the pricing. So they retail for right around $600 to $1,000, and it's actually one of my favorite daily wears. Just when I don't want to put on something that I'm consciously making an effort not to, like I've said before, hit on the door of the safe or whatever it is.
Okay, fair enough. And I think both of our watches serve important purposes. This for me is my only robustly water resistant watch that's rated at more than 5 ATM. I wore this to our Earth Day beach cleanup over the weekend. We do that every year at Watch You Want. We go down to Hollywood Beach and we pick up garbage. And for me, this is the watch I can wear and be rained upon. So it has a special function in my collection. I think this is probably best described as your daily driver.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's something that, like I said, not every collection is going to be purely made up of $5,000 and over. It's something for me that, if I see something I like, I'm going to put it in my watch box. Regardless of what name it has on it, if it has some kind of a decent movement in it, I'm intrigued. I've got vintage Omega in my collection too, along with newer stuff. So this is something that I liked, intrigued me, and I read more into the brand and where they came from and who started them, and I really liked it.
And the funny thing is, I'm getting feedback right here. Mike Brekovic saying, Tim, that looks like an Invicta, laugh out. Kind of does. And I'll tell you what, I used that as a sort of defense mechanism. That's the only JLC I owned while I was still in the Navy. Because Master Chief started saying things like, ooh, LT's buying an Omega, we're paying him too much. So this is the thing. People recognized my Bond Omega Seamaster, and they would comment on it and comment about how much it cost or how much they imagined it cost. I bought this, and all of a sudden, no one commented on the price of my watch or asked how much I paid for it. They all assumed that it was like an Invicta or something like that. I did have a couple of people ask me where I bought it, and I always responded just to diffuse the question. Oh, that kiosk in the middle of the mall that sells the iPhone cases and the big watches? Oh yeah, I know that. That's where I got it. Oh, cool. Take a look. That's neat.
Perfect.
So I put it on the cover of the Whiting Tower base newspaper when we did our Adjust for Daylight Savings cover. I put it on the cover of the base newspaper, and no one commented because no one had any idea what this thing was.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's an Invicta.
Mike, you did start this, by the way.
Okay, so from Tim C., regular viewer, asking me, Grand Seiko Quartz or Aerospace?
Ooh, that's tough.
I would go with the Aerospace. The Grand Seiko Quartz is going to have immaculate case and dial and bracelet finish, but for me, the Aerospace is such a Swiss Army knife. It's a solid state Swiss Army knife, and I just can't resist that about it. Plus the fact is, Aerospace has been a model line. I think there have been 6 generations now since 1985 at Breitling. We still see those first mid-80s Aerospaces coming back to us, so you know that it's a lifetime product. They come back to us for batteries and overhauls, so we know they go the distance.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I'm a big fan of Grand Seiko and what they're starting to do and the separation that's going on, and I think we'll be talking more and more about them as the year progresses. But in this specific case, I just preach on how great the Aerospace is for the pricing and for what it delivers. So, I would totally agree with you on that one.
Okay, so I think we are in accord on that count then.
Yes.
And I have a question.
Finally.
Yeah, there we go. Niko thought I was trying to shoot him down, and no way, I'm just
right.
I'm the silent assassin. So, Bad Luck is asking, our user Bad Luck is asking, do you think the new Blancpain Mil-Spec Tribute will hold value? So, this is an interesting question because this just came out this year at Basel World. It's a discreetly sized steel limited edition tribute to the famed Mil-Spec Blancpain 50 Fathoms watches. So the mil specs, you know that the watch was adopted by U.S. combat swimmers. It's one of the few Swiss watches to have actually been issued by the armed forces to servicemen. The watch is 40 millimeters, and it's a limited production piece. I would say, based on the track record of Blancpain 50 Fathoms limited editions, it's probably not going to hold any more value than the standard 50 Fathoms. It's an attractive piece, but for one, at 40 millimeters, it's only going to appeal to watch snobs. I feel like the Blancpain 50 Fathoms customer today is looking for something between the 43 millimeter bathyscaphe and the 45 millimeter 50-15. So I think it's a little bit smaller, even though it's a purist's watch. I'm not sure that there are necessarily that many purists to keep the market buoyant. And also, Niko, you could speak to this more directly than I could, but Blancpain as a brand does not hold its value the way, perhaps
it deserves to.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm thankful for it because when I go to buy one, it'll be a lot easier. But it's something that I've never really understood. I mean, I think that unfortunately with Blancpain, they've really kind of capitalized on 1, 2, maybe 3 models. Number one being 50 Fathoms, and then now, of course, the bathyscaphe, which is really hot, and I really enjoy the watch. Yeah. Their bracelet, I'm not too crazy about, but on their straps, really, really nice watch. So why does any brand lose value? I don't think that they really overpopulate the market. I don't think that it's really a matter of that.
It is a little bit puzzling, though, when you see that Blancpain is releasing 500 pieces in a limited edition, and then you do the math mentally, and you're like, wait, Blancpain makes like 7,500 watches a year.
Right.
So this is a huge proportion of their annual production. Mm-hmm. Like 500 watches is a big chunk of what they're going to make in a single year. So by Blancpain standards, I don't want to say this is flooding the market, but it's certainly cramming the pipeline a bit. And if we just look back to history, the last time they did high-profile, like historically themed limited editions. Back in like 2010 and 2011, they did 500 pieces each of the NORAD and the Aqualong tributes.
Yeah.
We've seen those watches come back, and we like to buy them, we like to sell them, and collectors like to acquire them, but they pretty much immediately took a depreciation hit, and they've never really recovered relative to their original MSRP. And that's an MSRP from 6-7 years ago. They still haven't stepped back up to that level.
Right.
So I wouldn't count on the mil-spec to buck that trend.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't really either. I mean, it's something that I think that unless there's some kind of new release, new model that really brings them back to page one, that might even hurt the other models more. So I don't think they're ever going to really get stronger than where they are now.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. In the same year they launched the 40 millimeter tribute to mil-spec, they also launched a new 38 millimeter bathyscaphe. So I see a 38 millimeter Blancpain diver and a 40 millimeter Blancpain diver as actually being in competition with each other. So there's even a little bit of product overlap within their 2017 novelty catalog. But individually, I like both watches. I like them qualitatively. I think they're good pieces. I think they would make someone proud to own them, and I would be proud to own them. Yeah. So, kind of the vulgarity of the market aside, these are great watches that deserve respect. I just wish they got more of it.
I saw a question come from SK Wong. He says, hello, Niko. Calatrava 5119 versus Reverso Tribute Calendar as the only dress watch. I'm intrigued to hear your take on this one. Both watches I like. Obviously, as we've said multiple times tonight, Jaeger biased. But, what do you think of the 5119?
I like it. I think if you're looking at the 5119 new, you should probably try to find a pre-owned 5116 because in my book, identical case dimensions, identical movement, but you're getting an enameled dial with the 5116. So for me, that puts it over the top, and that would put it over. I think the Reverso Tribute Calendar is beautiful, but if you're thinking of the watch I am, it's simply overpowering its size. I think that watch being as big as it is a tough direct comparison to the 5119. Now, on the other hand, there are a number of tremendous Reverso Duo Atelier models available this year with incredible casebacks, including exotic materials like green marble. And when you start throwing in those artistic flourishes, plus the versatility of the Duo complication, then I think you've got traction and you've got a comparison that, finish notwithstanding, I still would consider the JLC as one to own, not as if you were to get it for free and then sell it, but as one to actually buy and own and enjoy. I think that would be my comparison to a 5119. And if by any means you could get a 5120 the micro rotor and the display caseback in essentially the same package size as the 5119 would also be really compelling.
In other words, keep looking. There's so many things that you can do as far as if you're only trying to choose one dress watch. I thought I was going to go down that road. I didn't. I have way too many now. But, we're always here, and you've got both of our emails if you do come to something where, it's a final decision. So.
Now, this is a great question from TFW No Snowflake. And he's asking, at what price point do you think an ETA-powered watch is too much? I've seen beautiful RGM watches made in Pennsylvania, but I can't justify spending $5,000 for a 2824. There is no upper limit to what is appropriate to charge for an ETA caliber. It comes down to two things. One, how openly does the manufacturer disclose that it's using an ETA base? Then you have the information to make your decision. And second, how special is the watch and the elaboration of the ETA caliber? There are some watches that have ETA base calibers that are just so special as timepieces. Like when you look at the work of Oxen Jr. out of Lucerne with Ludwig Oxlin, when you look at the elaboration of an ETA base caliber by Keaton Myrick or Pascal Coyon of France, you're talking about something that starts out as, it's almost like they do it in reverse. They start out with a hamburger and they do turn it back into steak. So it's purely down to how honest is the brand about using an ETA caliber and how impressive is the rest of the watch and the elaboration of the base. Because I can tell you, IWC's Destrero Scafusia, which was a compound grand complication, was worth every cent that they asked for it back in 1993, and it still is pre-owned. So, Niko, I think it just comes down to how much value is invested in the watch, and is the brand open about using ETA?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I get that question all the time. Is like, am I getting my value for the movement? What am I paying for? What am I paying for as far as, what we're asking for in a watch? So, like Tim said, it comes down to really knowing the details and making sure that in the piece is the exact value of what craftsmanship went into it, and that you feel like you are getting your money's worth and you're not just, like some people say, paying for a name or paying for, what's hot at the moment.
Yeah, so I would say there's no upper limit, but it has to be a sliding scale. More money, more of that ineffable specialness that makes us watch nerds. You've got to have, it's got to be a linear scale. It can't just be, here's a 2824 and pay me $500,000 because it was owned by Jackie Onassis. That's my judgment. So now we have a little bit more questions coming through, and Faylene has some graphics for us this time. Araz B asks, I'm a fan of the show, and I've been following for around 2 years now, since you guys were just doing the Talking Hands videos. I've also followed Federico's channel. By the way, Federico in the live chat box tonight is talking watches as ever, minding the chat. You can interact with him there as I spiel. But he's saying, I followed both you guys, and I'm glad that you've joined up. I've got a couple of questions, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So, Niko, like me, Aras is approaching his 30th birthday, and, well, I'm past my 30th, but for me that was a big watch memento. A date that I said, you know what, I'm going to buy something crazy for myself. So he's approaching his 30th birthday. I bought my Duomet, my white gold Duomet. He's thinking of buying an Audemars Piguet reference 15703 ST Royal Oak Diver. It's basically the watch I have on the table here, except it doesn't have the display case back. This is the 15710. So he's thinking of getting that watch. He wants to know whether I recommend the watch, and more specifically, if I've heard any horror stories about the caliber 3120 inside it. I will say, Araz, you have nothing to fear. The 3120, when it first came out in round about like 2004, 2005, had some growing pains. It was Audemars Piguet's first modern, automatic, entirely in-house. I guess they did the Tourbillon automatic in-house, but that was Maurice Grimm's work for them on commission from Omega. This was their first mainstream automatic in-house caliber of the modern era, and there were growing pains. Building a movement from scratch is hard. Serializing its production is hard. Getting the quality control down is hard. I would say for the first 5 years they were working on that, but you got to remember, 2005 was a long time ago, and that is many movements built since. They've fixed any problems that came out of the gate, and I can tell you that Mike Michaels regards the movement very highly. Full balance bridge, free sprung balance, it's very rugged. It was designed with sports watch use in mind. Once some of the train issues were resolved, It was very reliable, and it remains so to this day. It's also got a nice 55 to 60 hour power reserve, and it is beautifully finished. So you won't have the display case back on the 703 version of the offshore diver. You know that what's in there is beautifully made. Hacking seconds and a quick change date. For me, this is about as good as it gets on the sliding scale between sports watch toughness and high horology refinement. Great watch. I love it. And I like the caliber 3122. Okay, so now this is a little bit more of a watch that I think we've got up our alley here at Watch You Want. But Niko, what do you think of the PAM 372? The PAM 372, just like your 1950 case, 47 millimeter manual wind, salt of the earth Panerai.
Well, what I'll say first about the AP that he was considering is this is the one AP to where I really look at it and I go, if I were going to just get one, this thing crosses over for me, which is something I preach on a lot. Like I said, it's something that is like very comfortable. It shows its presence, but it's one to where I could go, you know what? I can wear this anywhere. I can make this a power piece or I can make this a sport piece, and it's always going to be comfortable. And even me who wears minimalist watches, I really love that watch. So I think that's a great choice. As far as the Panerai, 47 millimeters is tough. If you're the kind of guy that can wear that watch, it's a great watch. I like the fact that it's time only.
Okay.
I think that that's a great feature. I think it's a very economical watch for what they deliver, for what movement they put in it, and what quality comes with that case. I like the finish. The strap that comes with that watch is really nice, really comfortable. I'm a fan of Panerai straps. That's one that I really regard. You know, if you find it for the right price point, that's one that I would have in my collection if I could pull it off. I'm more of a 44 millimeter Panerai guy, but there's not a lot of us out there, so that's a great watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic 1950 case. It's two hands. It's beautiful. It's considered to be one of the real modern-day Panerai classics. It's got just enough of a vintage vibe with the combination of the crystal and the dial, the simulated aged loom, the rose. I mean, it's got like a rosination about it that's beautiful on the dial. I really like that model. Now, regarding the caliber 3000 in it, this is the other part of the question. Now, the caliber 3000, in my opinion, is the perfect movement for Panerai to install in an upscale, time-only two-hand watch because it has robust power reserve with 3 days, so being manually wound, you want to wind it occasionally as a pleasure. You don't want it to be like the daily chore where you're like, okay, if I don't wind it today, it's going to stop. Once every 3 days is good. It also has twin mainspring barrels. It's in-house made, and because of the twin mainspring barrels, it doesn't just have a 3-day power reserve, but it has an even torque progression throughout, so it's not like the thing's going to run wildly fast or slow at the beginning or end of its mainspring wind. It also has a feature that I like a lot that's not really well advertised, which is the quick change feature when you're jumping the hour hand forward or backwards as you travel through time zones. It allows you to set the watch using the mobile hour hand without actually stopping the movement and interrupting the timing. So for me, that's a great traveler's feature. In terms of durability of the movement, it's nothing's as tough as a 6497, but it's as close as you can get, I think, with a refined in-house caliber a la Panerai. It has a full balance bridge, which I like, braced Rolex style, anchored at both sides, a free-sprung balance architecture. It can be regulated very precisely, and then because of the free-sprung architecture, it'll hold that regulation. It can't be thrown easily by shock. What's left? Well, I just like the fact that overall it's a clean, open, and visible movement. So if you're going to get a Panerai in-house caliber, you may as well have one that looks good, and it does. So in terms of its historical references, like the three-quarter style bridge, it's not a real three-quarter bridge, but it's designed in the style. Even the look of the movement pays a little bit of deference to Panerai history, because that's the kind of caliber they used during the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So I like the movement, and I like the watch. And Niko, I think we're on the same page for once.
We definitely are. Well, twice in one show. I mean, we're going to be having comments about this for weeks.
Jinx, buy me a Coke. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Niko and I, had an absolute blast answering your questions. Of course, Mike Michaels will be back on Wednesday. It's Watchmakers Wednesday. We've got a fun topic queued up, and he's ready to answer your questions about watch service, maintenance, and care. Niko, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be here. And guys, I love the calls that I'm getting after the show. You know, I was telling one of the guys that I usually got half an hour between here and home, and you know, you guys are really supportive, and I get a lot of great text messages with more questions that we try to feature. As far as the emails, if I'm trying to get back to everybody. I get back to most, I think. If I miss one or two, I apologize. Just email me again. I will get back. But keep on reaching out, guys. I'm really, really happy with the progress we're making on the channel, and you know, let's keep it going.
Yeah, so guys, thank you for joining me. Subscribe to this channel if you like what you see here. I'm going to plug it one more time. Watch You Want Watch reviews for the return of my old style talking hands videos. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. I'm Tim. He's Niko. He's Federico. And she's Faylene. This is Watch You Want. And thanks for logging on.